So Dune is a project that is on a lot of people's radars. I think it's not just book readers who are excited about this film, but people coming from a filmmaking perspective, people who are excited about the cast, excited about the director, really are starting to get on board this train of Dune and its release this year. I'm coming from a filmmaker's perspective. I really enjoy the filmmaking that Denis Villeneuve has brought in his previous films. I like the cast he's ensembled, and don't get me wrong, some of you may question some of his character choices for actors, but I think Denis Villeneuve is a director that can bring the best out of his actors, even if on page they don't sound like the best fits for the roles. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But I thought in today's video I discuss a very important issue surrounding Dune that I think is going to work in its favour. I think it's going to do well at the box office, but it's an issue that people kind of glide over who are fans of the books and also just fans of the Dune property, or even Denis Villeneuve's, and that is in fact the marketing and the approach that they're going to take through trailers to advertise this film and get people into the cinema to watch it. And I want to start off this video by talking about, the perspective that I'm coming from and why I'm talking about the points that I mentioned, so you guys don't get too confused in why I'm coming from this perspective. But before I mention them, if you do enjoy this video and you want to see more Dune, more updates on Dune, reviews and breakdowns of whenever they release the trailer, subscribe to the channel and also like this video if you do enjoy it. But without further ado, let's get into why the marketing and the trailer approach for Dune is going to be so important in terms of its success. Now, to start off with, I'm someone who hasn't read Dune. I'm very excited to read it this year because I do want to read it before the film comes out. It has kind of caught my interest, not just the film but also the property it's based on, the book, so I really do want to read it this year. And just because I haven't read it doesn't mean I can't be excited about this project. Saying that, I think it's important to capture not just the imagination of people who have read it. You need to try and capture the imagination of people who haven't read it. You need to get as much people as possible for a project, especially a science fiction project, into the cinema to watch this film. Denis Villeneuve knows that himself, and for someone who studied film and even marketing briefly, and overall as a fan of Villeneuve's work, I want this to be a success for him but also a success for fans of the novel. So that's kind of the perspective that I'm coming at this from, and that's why I'm approaching the marketing in this video. We know that people who have read the book will turn up to this, but for Dune to have a sequel, they need to make this a success with audiences greater than just the book readers. Denis Villeneuve has even stated himself that the plan is for Dune to be split into 2 feature films, rather than just stuff Frank Herbert's novel into one feature without room for the story to have any breadth. I mean, after all, this is a film adaptation and the marketing approach should be open to attract a wide range of audiences to the project who may be interested in the concepts that Dune has to offer as a science fiction property. So overall, for me, Dune and its fans should want this movie to succeed. I personally focus on quality over quantity, but if this film is as good as people imagine it to be, there's no doubt that on the budget it has been made on and the potential it has, that it deserves to be a success. I also want to mention to start off with that I did bring Star Wars as a comparison into my other videos, and a lot of people were criticising that. I can completely understand your criticism, and I think that for me personally, when I was talking about Star Wars in that video, I should have made it more clear. But what I was saying was that the person who has reviewed early footage for Dune has come out and stated that essentially they have compared it to Star Wars in a way that's through its scale, less in terms of its themes or its ideologies or kind of the approach it's taking, but more about the footage in terms of its scale and the huge size of what he was seeing in the early footage, and that it looks like it's a property that can really capture a wide range of people's imagination and bring them into the cinema to watch it. So that's all I was stating through that. I mean, the only comparison is the inspiration Dune gave Star Wars in its interplanetary nature, obviously its visual comparisons, like I guess riding giant sandworms, and of course the huge budget it has, but the themes and concepts of the film are much more indie, adult, and in nature of what they approach. On paper they seem more intellectual, and I think a lot of readers who have talked to me in my previous videos those who have read the books have stated these kind of points. So I thought I'd outline that in the video, so now that I can go into kind of the marketing things Dune will focus on, you guys kind of understand the perspective that I'm coming from, so I don't confuse you in what I'm saying, because obviously I haven't read the book, I really want to read it, and I'm coming, at the film in a filmmaking perspective. So let's get into some of the most important reasons what Dune has to consider and what it can do to attract audiences into the cinema when it comes out on December 18th. I think it's important to start off by mentioning that there is no official rating for the movie yet, and this could be crucial to its success, considering it will most likely have a high budget. Villeneuve has worked most entirely within the frameworks of an R rating in his filmmaking career, apart from Arrival, which by the way was financially successful as a PG-13, considering also that Lynch's Dune was a PG-13, and there's a greater possibility in today's age to kind of stretch the boundaries of what a PG-13 can do. I think it's more likely that we will see Dune as a PG-13. That doesn't mean it cannot approach the concepts or the adult-like themes. It is only a restriction to certain things like the graphic violence or the sexual content. They can still work within the PG-13 framework, I think, to create something that is just as satisfying for fans of the property and also people who are watching and experiencing Dune as a story for the first time. But let me know what your opinion to that is, because I think a lot of people will have different opinions to what the rating should be for this film. But whatever the rating turns out to be, it could dramatically change the marketing campaign, so let me know down below what you think of that. Now, as this science fiction epic could be told in a more intellectual and indie way within the science fiction genre, when considering Villeneuve's other work and the source material of Dune, and also based on reactions I've heard towards it, it's key to note that this may give it a huge advantage when it comes to marketing and grabbing people's attention. It could also hurt it, but I think that that's why marketing is going to be so important in its success. Now, I don't think they should take the approach that Blade Runner 2049 took, in that everything was built around kind of the stars in the marketing, and by that I mean how they built everything around Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, the action, and the spectacle of it. In basically showing their main selling points. Dune, however, has a much wider cast, which conveys a worldly range of characters with interesting perspectives. I think that they should look at the marketing success of something like Game of Thrones, and I know Dune inspired things in Game of Thrones, but it's no doubt that the show very much understood how to attract audiences. It did that through its selling attraction of very unique and widely disparate characters. It conveyed to the audience that they may not have seen this kind of approach before. And sure, Dune will have shots of giant sandworms in its marketing, it will also have visceral yet atmospheric landscapes, and these are all great selling points, but as I said, there needs to be a heavy focus on the world building, the characters and the setup of what story the audience is getting themselves into. I think with all of this being on display, you could attract those who, like me, haven't read the source material but are intrigued by what they are seeing. I think Dune as a name instantly grabs people's attention, and it did it for me personally. I'd never heard of Dune until a few years ago, and now it's been brought up as a film project. It has me even more excited to experience what Dune is, and also to read the novel and understand where people are coming from and why this novel has changed a lot of people's lives. So that's one of the main things that I think is going to be heavily important. But also grabbing them additionally with the characterization and vibe of the project will hopefully be a bigger advantage of getting people to check out the film. Now, don't get me wrong, Dune is a big financial gamble. With these points mentioned, I think there's always going to be some degree of risk involved in any film, but as many have quoted in my previous videos, a quote from the actual book, "Fear is the mind killer," and if fear of failure were the sole arbiter of why certain films got made, this would be a very boring art form. The greater the risk, the greater the reward, and if the Dune adaptation conveys a well-told story, themes, ideas, through its science fiction approach, it hopefully should prevail. And that here's hoping to Dune does prevail. I really do want this film to succeed. I think we are moving into a era of filmmaking, and especially this year, where we're getting a lot of filmmakers being supported now. We're getting filmmakers that are actually being supported at the box office, and I think Denis Villeneuve is very much in need of that. I think he wants to see this film be a success. I think his quality that he brings to a film or a project is something that not much directors have reached today. For me, the only two that are on that par, up there in terms of, you know, big budgets but can do it very interestingly, do it in a very indie way, but then still bring people into the cinema, are Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. Don't get me wrong, Blade Runner wasn't very great at the box office, and I've stated that on multiple videos that I've done, but I do think that he has been a success on previous projects, and I think people are starting to watch Blade Runner, they're starting to understand this guy as a filmmaker and what he does, and they've seen some of his previous projects, Prisoners being a huge one, which is growing and growing year to year. I think it's one of the best films of the last 10 years personally, so, you know, seeing the work this guy is doing, I think when he approaches a project like Dune, you cannot help but be excited even if you haven't read the Dune book. And I think I'm a sole example of that. I'm someone who's been doing some of these videos on Dune because of my interest in certain aspects towards it and my overall anticipation for the project. And that comes, you know, from someone who hasn't read the book. So imagine when I eventually read the book, and if I really enjoy it, how excited someone like me is going to be after that. And I think if Dune can really capture the imagination of people who haven't read it and get them into the cinema, that's going to be a great thing. And at the end of the day, most of a movie-going audience isn't going to be people who have read the book. There's going to be a lot of people who've read Dune who turn up for this, don't get me wrong. But if this film is successful, most of the audience that make it a success will not be those who have just read the source material. So that is my kind of list of things and discussion, I guess you could say, surrounding the marketing and trailers that we're eventually going to get for Dune 2020. I'm extremely excited for this film, and I think they really need to take a smart approach with its marketing campaign. I've highlighted some of this stuff in other videos, but I haven't really done a full video on it, so I thought I'd bring this to you guys today and basically see what you guys think. If you guys agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me know down below and list some of the things that you think Dune has to do in order to sell to its audience, and not just the audience who are, you know, really interested in the project already, but ones who haven't heard of it before. So let me know down below what you think. If you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like rating as I said before, and subscribe to the channel for more Dune, and let me know if there's any other types of Dune videos you want to see me do. Obviously it's going to be very limited up until we see a trailer in terms of Dune topical videos on my channel, because there's just, for me personally, as someone who hasn't read the book yet, there's not enough to talk about from my perspective. But when I do read the book, I will also give you my review on the book and certain things that I think of it, because of my excitement surrounding the film. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you think. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.